So here we go. So we'll just take a few minutes so that we can collect ourselves around our chosen objective. And there's no shortage of things to say for me about our practice and how we might engage in that practice. And yet, this morning or this start of the afternoon, I want to encourage you to think a little bit with me about karma as a thing that exists for us in our lives. And many of you know that I try to shift our conversation around karma away from karma being a bitch, because we constantly talk about, well, you know, karma's a bitch, that shit's coming back. And we kind of almost always end the conversation with that aspect or that perspective on it. And in the richness and the fullness of the philosophical stance around how our actions create momentum in the world, there's an opportunity for us to focus more clearly on what are known as phalas, P-H, like how we say fat. That's fat, P-H-A-T-T. I have a whole story about calling somebody fat, and it didn't go well. It wasn't the way we wanted it to run. And then I had that whole, backpedal, like, wait, no. Because the woman that overheard the conversation on fat was mistaken, she was a B.I.G., big old woman. And so she heard it, and it came through the karmic lens for her of like, y'all talking about me as a big woman. And I was like, I ain't small, so let's back off the violence. But when we talk about phalas, which are P-H-A-L-A-S, these are the seeds of karma that have equal potential to the samskaras, which are the pattern behaviors that take us in the direction of feeling the brick of our own momentum up against the back of our own head, which is the more common karma conversation, like, oh, you put action out into the world that's not generous or kind or so on and so forth, and it comes right back around and gets you. But equally, what if we put out into the world what the second side of this dual conversation is? We live in what we understand as duality. It's really big buckets, but the buckets can get refined, but they are essentially I like, I dislike. I understand the world in terms of what it is and what it isn't. And almost singularly, that's our way. And Buddhism and yoga have offered for thousands of years what is known as the third way, to move beyond these concepts of right and wrong and to condition the mind for a more expansive perspective. And that's what our practice is about. And in particular today, I'm going to discuss with you the potential for you to be of service. And once, quite a long time ago, gleefully, I had a conversation with a former military ops guy. He's one of those guys that stands like this. He never crosses his arms, and at most, he has his arms down by his side, because to do this, the delay of unfolding and getting your gun is too great. So he's that kind of guy. And he came to me one day, and he was like, I really seriously, when I get out of the military and I stop being a contractor, I want to create what's known as the KDS. And I was like, okay, here it comes. He was like, karma delivery system. And I thought, if this motherfucker is ding-dong in my doorbell, I'm not answering that call. I want the peephole a long way away, because he had been conditioned over time to feel really good about being the arm of justice, Sweet guy. Super sweet, in fact. To the point where you're like, ooh, you are so sweet, you're dangerous. He's the kind of guy that you don't see it coming. And I thought, so we engaged in this kind of awesome conversation, and I invited him to envision with me, what if we went on the other end of that same concept? What if we shifted the business model? And what our job would be to deliver surprise sweetness. You ding-dong somebody's door, and they put money in their hand. Or you tell them, like, you've got a free pass to know that you're fully protected. You'll never know where the protection comes from, but if you've been struggling with something, it's coming through now. What if we decided to adopt every day I'm a karma delivery system? because in truth, you are. Your actions have momentum in the world. And whether or not you think of yourself as small and insecure, lacking in security, lacking in capacity, which is one of the bigger lies you can tell yourself. And I have lots of conversation about that, but Marianne Williamson's quote that was used by Nelson Mandela, the idea that it serves no one for you to hide your gifts under the bushel basket, and that by playing small, you do a great injustice to the world. And the real fear that we have is that if we unfold in our fullness and that we shine our particular light, what will happen then? And the work that I invite you to do on the mat today, and there's so many segments that have to be worked through to really unpack the willingness to show up in the fullness of your power, to acknowledge how deeply we can impact someone, us first. So forgiveness, expressing real emotion, not stuffing it, not smiling, not making sure that your face is always pleasant. You guys have been with me before. I've been on the verge of violence with the old, why don't you smile more? Why don't you go fuck yourself? Is usually my immediate response. Sorry, little man. But the idea that we're here and that we have something to offer, and that if we stepped into this fullness completely with utter conviction, what would come to you? And who would you become in service to? It would be yoga, Buddhism. Many of the big hitters in the spiritual world have said we would become of service to love. That we would understand so deeply our own pain, and we would resonate with wanting to see that stop, that we would take action in the world to not pass it on. And we would even go the next step to add sweetness to the world, to add charity, generosity, kindness, more space, inclusiveness, put another chair at the table, cut your own meal in half so you can feed someone else. Because it's not like we're lacking. Most of us are still bitching about that 5 pounds. Oh my God, if I could just lose 10 pounds, I'd be so much better in the world. Oh my God, if I could just get rid of this 40 that's just dragging me down. Well, pass it on. Give half of your fucking taco away, right? And that's one little giggle moment, but you get it. So in this moment on the mat, and then we'll move into the actual movement and the practice of this, is to apply that thought process before you begin to practice. Because what are we practicing? So come to the mat. Forgive yourself for the mistakes. Engage in active forgiveness. What happens when you are so sweet and tolerant and understanding of you? You stayed up late, you drank too much, you ate the wrong food. Soften around that. You didn't take on blah, blah, blah. Soften around that. And remember that that's the burden that we're all carrying, everybody always, even with the best little smile. Hi, how are you? Great, you? I'm wonderful. Totally managing. So come into the authenticity of who you are today, so that we can start to embrace that and change how we expect other people to be in relation to us. Karma delivery system. Part of you loving you will be the delivery system and your karma. One last little conversation. So if you're engaged in a relationship that's just painful, stop that shit. Cut it short. Pour coffee on your leg. Oh my God, I gotta go get this before it turns into a 3rd-degree burn, right? Figure out a way. Step away from it. You are not of service eating shit. It is not what yoga and Buddhism ask us to do. Do not think that being good in the world means eating shit. Stop that. Even if it means being alone. Don't be lonely, so find people. But don't eat shit because, that's what nice people do. No. Radiantly healthy people say, I want more of this, and they move to it, and they cultivate it in their lives, and they step away from the toxicity. Because until you're honestly enlightened, your inclusive hug arms are only so big. Go with people that you know how to put your arms around and do that work consistently. And this, for everybody in the room, exists. Put your arms around yourself on the mat as often as possible. Come into loving you. And then we translate it out into the world. And now we move with that intention set as the foundation. So you're not chasing a posture, you're connecting to the breath. You're not chasing the expression of some alignment with your feet overhead. You're connecting to the breath and watching yourself move. You step into discomfort and you relax there so that we can do that off the mat. It's going to look weird on Instagram. So what? Let's do our work. Let's come to our feet.